Welcome to Make Today Count, your 20 minutes of fresh conversation served up to inform, educate and inspire an abundant life. I'm your host Ross Dean, and each episode I chat to thought leaders, influencers and experts in their game who all have one thing in common: the desire to go that extra mile, pushing against the status quo to create a richer life for both themselves and those around them, powered by compassion and driven by the need to leave the world that little bit better than when they arrived. Okay, hi guys, and welcome back to episode 14 of Make Today Count. Today we have Verity Gaida, who's a life coach and a writer who inspires and supports others to embrace a slower life from the inside out. Hey Verity, how are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you, Ross. Thanks so much for having me here.
No, it's a real joy. You know, I've been really looking forward to our conversation today. I'm trying to think. I think it was through a mutual friend that I came across your work and through Instagram, and it was so different to what I'd kind of seen from a lot of other coaches in sort of the coaching arena, and kind of everything to do with kind of slow living and everything. So I'm really looking forward to get into conversation today. For people that maybe haven't come across the work that you do before, can you just give us a little bit of background about kind of your background and kind of how you got to where you are today, please?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you've already kind of introduced me very well. So I am Verity. I'm a life coach and I'm a writer, and I help people to live a slower life. I'm really inspired by small creative businesses and generally anyone that's going after a life outside of that 9 till 5 norm. I just find so inspiring. Perfect. So I am mum to a little 2-year-old. I live in a cabin in a field with my little family, which is quite unusual and very joyful. And I kind of got to this point quite organically, I guess. There was definitely not a big plan to live a specific kind of lifestyle, especially one that you could hashtag on Instagram. That was never the aim. So yeah, my little boy is 2 years old, and before going on maternity leave, I lived and I worked in London. I was an EFL teacher. I taught English as a foreign language to students from all over the world, and I was also really lucky because I got to live and work in South Korea and Vietnam too. So I was doing that. We moved back to Suffolk when I was pregnant, so I couldn't go back into my teaching job. I've been doing some freelance writing off and on for a number of years now. So I was doing a bit of freelance writing on my mat leave. And I guess I just kind of started following life coaches and this slow living movement online. And I just got really sucked into the whole personal development world, I guess. Yeah. So I went on a retreat. I did lots of courses, lots of workshops with other coaches. And it all just sort of came together about a year ago where I kind of noticed that my natural curiosity to just know everything about other people, my teaching experience, I've been told I'm quite a good listener, non-judgmental. And it all just came together, and I just had a bit of a light bulb. I think, I want to be a coach as well. And people are already interested in me talking about this slow living. And I think it's just so vital for people to slow down. So I finished my training last year, and I'm now in the early days of running my own coaching business.
It's amazing. So, and with coaching today, I think there's a wealth of kind of noise online that kind of echoes a lot of kind of fast pace. Kind of the word hustle is bandied around a lot of the time. And I think what stood out for me is that when I came across your content was the fact that it was this different approach. And to be honest, this kind of the slow living movement, you were the first kind of point of contact that I'd had with that kind of movement. And for people that are kind of listening and who are kind of intrigued and they've kind of pulled over the car to listen to now, what exactly is meant by the term slow living as far as you're concerned?
Well, it's kind of different things to different people. And depending on how much you're on social media, it may look like it's just living very minimally in the middle of nowhere and essentially not doing very much.
Yeah.
But it's actually a really big worldwide movement. There are lots of different movements within it. So there's slow food, which is all about kind of like farm to table, which started when the first McDonald's opened in Italy, and there were such big protests about it because it went against like the Italian way of eating and family time and being.
Oh, wow.
That, somebody started this slow food movement, and it's kind of moved into lots of different areas. There's slow design, there's slow cities. It's a whole big movement. But for me personally, I see it as taking a step back from how noisy our lives are these days. I think that society, intentionally or not, has kind of made us believe that there is a way that we should live.
Yeah.
Because of that, we have lost our connection to who we really are, like as individuals, as well as sort of collectively as humans. So for me, slow living is just taking a step back from all of that noise, from those expectations, from those shoulds, and kind of really dialing it back and figuring out what's most important to you.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people that I kind of that I have on the show and kind of chat, maybe if they're in coaching or in other areas, usually the position and the kind of the direction in which they're going now has spawned from kind of an experience or something. Is that something that kind of happened with you? Did you find yourself kind of living a kind of a very hectic life, and then was that then what was really appealed to you in the sort of the slow living movement?
I'd love to say that it was, but I don't think so. I don't think so. No,
just kind of appealed, and yeah.
Well, I'm from Suffolk originally, so I sort of had that sort of slow countryside upbringing, and then moved straight into cities. Was in sort of capital cities in a few different countries for about 16 years. And to be, completely honest, I think it was probably in my early 30s when I first kind of started experiencing depression and anxiety and getting to know myself better and noticing that actually being out every single minute of the day, being crazy sociable, doing things I didn't want to be doing, spending time with people I maybe didn't want to be, they were all contributing to my anxiety. So sort of slowly I sort of tuned more into what kept me happy, I suppose. So there wasn't like a big crazy
light bulb moment or anything
corporate life. It was just actually to kind of deal with anxiety and to feel as good as I can, to slow stuff down. And it's just been like one massive lesson from there, basically.
Yeah, I think it's, and I can really relate to that, in that, I remember sort of back to my early 30s, and that was a time of kind of self-reflection. I think I don't know what it is about that early 30s. I speak to a lot of people in that kind of same period of time, for a lot of people, where they kind of have got to a point where they kind of just know they kind of want to change in some way. They're not quite sure at the time what that direction is, but life kind of presents itself with situations or people that kind of reveal where you need to go or you need to do something else. And so it's really interesting. I remember myself when we had our first child, my daughter, about 8 years ago now, and that was sort of my early 30s, and even though that was a time of celebration and such a wonderful thing, I think sometimes it can also be just life changes, I think, can be a big factor. And even though they're an amazing thing, bringing in my circumstance, bringing my daughter into the world, it was, I don't know what happened. There was a little bit of kind of anxiety around that, and maybe it's kind of like, oh, look, I've got to look after someone else now, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things I think that can kind of trigger people, and it might not just be, like you say, work and bits and pieces, but it can be lots of different stuff, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually I think that age is particularly crucial, because that's when those pressures of society really hit you, right? If you're not married, if you don't have kids, if you don't have a successful career, people start questioning you as well as yourself, don't they?
Course,
why haven't you done this yet? And I certainly felt that in my early 30s too. In fact, in my very late 20s, that's why I moved to South Korea, because I was like, I can't handle all of these questions.
That's interesting.
Bit of an escape. And then I think when you do move into that phase and have children, you're naturally thinking, what kind of role model you want to be to your kids and values that you want them to take on. So it's quite a natural time, I suppose, for these questions to come up.
And like you say, that really spurs you on, because you kind of want to, you want to start bringing the child into the world for them to learn off you, because that's the person that they're going to be learning the most off. They're going to be around you the most. So I think that kind of spurs you on to kind of just reevaluate kind of what you do. And I think it's certainly speaking from my perspective, that was the case with myself. From the people that you kind of work with, and people that kind of are interested in kind of this kind of, I guess, transition into this slightly different kind of lifestyle, why do you feel people are kind of drawn into that? Is there something, like we were just speaking about, kind of a life event, or is it something they just kind of find by way of social media or the web? How, in your experience, how have your clients and the people that you work with kind of come upon this kind of subject?
I think there's kind of two different ways you can come to it, actually. I would say there's people that really are just stuck in the opposite. They're stuck in this really fast-paced life. Whether they've made it themselves or it's just been unavoidable circumstances, whatever the reason, they're feeling really overwhelmed. They're exhausted. They're never on top of anything. And, they could be heading towards burnout themselves. So it's kind of just that realization that they actually cannot carry on living at this pace. Like you say, there may also be a bigger life event, something that they go through, whether, a happy event, something sad, perhaps just a time to re-clarify where you're at. But in general, I would say that people drawn to this living slower are people who, they just really care. They really care about the life that they lead. They're noticing how much surface level stuff we've been led to believe is where our happiness lies. They don't want to look back, when they're, old. They don't want to look back with that what if, or if only I'd done that. They don't want regrets. They don't want to feel that they've lived their life to everyone else's expectations and never put themselves first. And they just want to really make most of being on this beautiful planet and the people that they're with. So I think it attracts people as well who are anxious about who they are, their values, the impact they have on other people. And for me as well, there's an element of conscious consumerism, sustainability, looking after the environment as well. But in general, it's people who want to live in line with their values and live in the moment as well.
And I just think this kind of projected, I keep going back to that word, but that hustle and that kind of comes, I think, especially if you're running businesses and that kind of stuff, when you look online and see kind of like the influencer markets and people that are deemed to be the top of their game, a lot of that content is all around kind of just hustle and don't sleep and do all this stuff and get to the top.
$10,000 launches.
I know, and I don't know about you, but it all sounds lovely, but I think it's like anything. There'll be types of people that will look at that and go, amazing, I'm going to jump on it, and they'll do fantastically well. But there are other people with other skill sets, with other kind of emotional tendencies and all those different things that just aren't like them. And what's great about what you're doing, I think, is that it gives choice. It gives choice to people that doesn't resonate, and just giving them a voice to say, I can equally do amazing work, but I'm going to do it in a slightly different way.
I love that. Absolutely.
So we've spoken about how it isn't sustainable, and I'm guessing for a lot of people that you've spoken to, this can also come out in other ways, physical kind of, either in illnesses or challenges with mental health. What kind of advice would you give? Because I think there's going to be a lot of people kind of listening in and thinking, yeah, there are some times when I feel like this or I feel like that.
Mm.
How does it usually present themselves? Have you kind of seen any sort of patterns for for people that you've spoken to, how this kind of overwhelm presents itself to people that you've chatted to?
I suppose there's been kind of like a couple of themes that have come up, and I know this all goes very Marie Kondo, but there's kind of like the decluttering. I do kind of think that, so when I talk about slow living from the inside out, like the out for me is kind of like your physical environment. So it really can be as simple as the stress that you feel when you walk into your home at the end of the day and you're confronted with chaos, essentially. That's just never going to start you off on the right foot. So I'm definitely finding that with clients that have just taken the time to go through even one room, even just having one space, that I really believe that your bedroom should be the space that is, that little sanctuary. That you can be slow and not feel overwhelmed in there. So there's definitely this part of, decluttering, getting rid of the stuff that you don't need. I'm not saying get rid of everything, because that's unrealistic, and you need the stuff that sparks joy. But so there's the physical side of things. There's also kind of like having a really packed diary. So people just realizing they've got this voice in their head consistently saying, I'm so busy, I'm too busy, I'm too busy.
Okay.
Really stressful. And then, just give me a second.
So definitely with the sort of the cluttering, I know, I think everyone that's got children will really, resonate with that. I found that myself, if I come in after work, and what is a big thing for me is kind of the area space in which I work as well. That's a big thing for me. So if I've got things like a clear desk and everything's away, I just generally feel better, and generally I'm more productive as well. I find, and it's the times when maybe I've left the office and the desk in a bit of a mess because I was in a rush, and I come back, and it really makes a difference, doesn't it? It's really surprising.
It really does. Like I sort of I make the point of, it sounds so silly. Obviously, we live in a cabin, so it's very small. So it's not like you can just close the door in a messy room and deal with it later. If you leave the kitchen in a mess, it's the first thing that you see in the morning. So I always make a point of just cleaning up at the end of the day. And I have to say, I didn't, when I was kind of thinking through what to talk about, I didn't think that housework was going to be one of my things.
Well, we like to multitask here on the podcast. So.
Yeah, there we go. But that sort of thing, so it's definitely kind of those external things that draw people to kind of working with me and wanting to slow stuff down. But then also I'm noticing themes coming up like people pleasing, which is really interesting. Lots of clients saying, well, I'm doing this, X, Y, and Z for this person, but actually I don't really know why, and again, it just goes back to that, the expectations of other people and wanting to be viewed in a certain way. And actually by working together, kind of getting to the bottom of why you might feel this way, you can start to reprioritize how you spend your time and what you are saying yes and no to. So a lot of it is about creating really strong boundaries for yourself.
And I guess for a lot of people, Verity, as well, when you're having these kind of thoughts and you're kind of in this situation, you probably at the time think it's just you that's kind of thinking this, and it can be quite isolating, can't it? I think, so, talking with someone, a coach, or, even just a friend in that circumstance, it's kind of that aha moment when they turn around and say, oh, I did that too, or I feel like that too. That can be so powerful, I think, can't it? And, but, as well as talking, I guess sometimes we're just not our best friend in kind of finding ways to kind of help the situation, I think is what I'm trying to get to. When it comes to managing our lifestyles, like our home, our diaries, all that kind of thing, where are we kind of going wrong a lot of the time? Is it just that we're trying just to do too much for maybe we've got a goal and we kind of want to, we're so entrenched in getting that goal that we kind of want to do anything, or is it just a mixture of a lot of things, do you think?
Yeah, it's a lot of things. And it's a really good question, actually, because I would go out on a limb to say that maybe our lifestyles don't necessarily go wrong, because I think that even when things kind of dramatically veer off course, I know this is a very coachy and irritating thing to say, we will always learn something about it, learn something from that experience. And so even in really hard times, you will eventually come through it. You will learn how brave you are, and you will always have that knowledge to draw on in the future. Saying that, when we are living super fast paced, it's not just our life that's really fast, it's our mind as well. And I think that it just makes it really impossible to know who you are, really. And I do believe it matters to know who you are. I know that because I would have rolled my eyes at this like 5 years ago myself.
Okay.
You know, kind of like personal development, self-help books, etc. You know, they seem self-indulgent. They seem quite selfish, maybe, to kind of devote some time to getting to know who you are. But the payoffs are really big, and I truly believe that the more people are happier in who they are, they will show up so much more truthfully and so much better for other people in their world as well. So acknowledging the things that are kind of getting out of control in your lifestyle, the things that set you off, by acknowledging them, working on them, you can be the best version of yourself. And who doesn't want that?
I think that's it. And you know, personally through my own experience as well, you just kind of start to see that ripple effect in that once you start presenting yourself in a way that maybe it's a little bit different to before, maybe you've got more of a proactive, open kind of view to a lot of things, you generally find that people will present themselves to you that are of a like mind.
Absolutely,
and just it's hard to put your finger on it, but I think what it is, a lot of people sometimes, and you made a really good point a minute ago, in that it could almost feel selfish to do some of this stuff. I think especially, you know, speaking as a parent, I think initially I was like, well, you know, I need to care for this child, I need to care for these children, you know, that they come first. And that's that old adage of, you know, you're in the plane and who puts the mask over first. You need to look after yourself. And I think, you know, for a lot of people, that's the first thing they sort of think about. Oh, I can't do this, you know, self-development, I haven't got time for that, blah, blah, blah. I've got to go and change Billy's nappy or whatever I need to do. But it is exactly what you're saying. It's so powerful. It has this ripple effect. And generally I find that just more opportunities will come to you. It's really hard to put a finger on. Would you agree? It's
yeah, it is. It's a journey, that's for sure. Again, God, I'm really on it with the cliches, aren't I? Here,
we're slowly ticking all the boxes.
Self-care bingo over here. Like I said, I just believe that if you're, and I think the thing I have to acknowledge as well, especially with coaching, is it's a privilege to be coached. Actually, you know, it's not an easy. It's not just I'll just give that a try and see what happens. Like there's a lot of investment financially, emotionally, your time. You know, it's not just something you will do on a whim. But I think the good thing about that is that if you've made that commitment, then you are going to work at it. You're going to work to make those changes. But I think, you know what, this even all goes back to my really cheesy 17-year-old self yearbook, who, you know, when they say, you know, what's your quote or whatever it is, and I can't even remember the exact phrase, but essentially what I've already said, I never wanted to look back with regret. I just feel so much that we're so lucky to be here. You know, like actually living here in this moment, it's a miracle that we're even here in the first place. And why would you want to fill your time with the things that don't bring you happiness? It doesn't make sense to me.
No.
And that's not to take away from, you know, the realities of a lot of difficult lives and a lot of difficult lived experiences. But if you are privileged and lucky enough to be in a position to get to know yourself better and therefore really live a life embodying your values for yourself, for other people, for the planet that we're on, then why wouldn't you?
And there's never been a better time in history so far where this stuff is accessible. You know, even at a lower level, it's kind of a gateway into some of this stuff. We have podcasts which are free. We have YouTube. We have books. I still think that books are the best £10, $10 you can spend.
Yes.
You're effectively, in some cases, buying a whole lifetime, someone's lifetime of knowledge and experience, and that can be just, either audio or through reading. I think that's so. Even go to the library, you haven't even got to pay for it.
I know.
There's a lot of things, and I think what happens a lot of the time is that people, not necessarily they mean to, but they put up some of these barriers about why I can't do certain things.
Yeah.
And the stories that we kind of tell ourselves around that. But taking a step back and actually looking at the landscape as to what's available, there's never been a better time to kind of seize this opportunity of so many of these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. This is just one of those things that you think you can chat about all night. This is.
I know. Well, because it's interesting that you say that as well, because actually one thing that has generally always bothered me not about people, but is just hearing somebody complain about the same thing for years and not doing something about it. It's like, I'd like to think I'm a fairly sympathetic person. I'd like to think that my job obviously allows that as well now. But I think there's only so many times of listening to somebody say, I hate my job. I want to go traveling, but I can't because of this, and I can't. And just coming up, like you say, with barrier after barrier as to why they can't do something. I don't have time for that. I don't never have. No. So another reason I love my clients is because they are recognizing they need to make a change, and they're actually doing something about it. And that's really brave.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that goes back to, at the right time for them, they will find the right time to hopefully get on board and live a life that's more abundant in their regards. But I think it goes back to what you're saying earlier about, another thing as well as organizing your life is organizing the people around you, evaluating how much value does this person take. Is it, what's the old adage of, is someone a radiator or a drain? Do they radiate stuff that you really have benefit from, and you can give value to them, or are they people that kind of drain you every time you spend time with them? That it all counts for a lot of this stuff. And we are the sum of the five people that we spend time with. I really agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the thing with that is, like, it's obviously not, you don't just go around cutting people out of your life because they make you feel a bit sad. But it's just kind of like having a bit more self-awareness and putting barriers, not barriers, like boundaries in place. So you're like, okay, that's fine. I will see them once a month and I will talk to them about themselves, but I won't share things about me because they're not going to be able to, reciprocate in the way that I would like. It's kind of just having that sort of knowledge.
I think that's a really good point, actually, because I think when that topic is brought up, a lot of people think it's exactly that. I'm going to go in their house and say, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. And then we're going to, go to Facebook and unlike all these people. But it's not about that. From my perspective anyway, it's just about you minimizing the time that you think about them or the time that you're going to spend with them in a natural way. If you're always worried about how a certain person thinks about you, then you step back and you think that's not serving me. So you'll concentrate and focus on an area which is going to bring you more benefit and more joy. I think that's
and I think that's kind of like imperative to real life, but also social media. I'm actually really surprised I haven't spoken about social media yet, because that's a whole other thing. But just like the opportunities for comparison, for trolling even, there's a lot of negativity out there. And again, it's just about putting up those boundaries and controlling what you consume and the people that are within your community and your audience.
Because that's the crazy thing. We have control around this stuff. We can choose. We can choose not to watch a television program. We have a choice not to listen to the news on the radio as we're driving to work. There are things that we can put into our lives that enable us to just have more freedom around some of this stuff. And
exactly.
it can be really powerful. I think what have you seen as the main kind of, I guess, benefits of adopting this kind of lifestyle? Maybe speaking from your own perspective, what have you seen that's changed that you've found really powerful or has been really great for you?
I think it does sound like a myth, but you can actually get more time back in your day by living a bit slower.
Yeah.
You can do the things that you love, but you do have to let go of the things that you don't to make that happen, which is difficult. So yeah, I would say a big benefit is just having more time. And in that way, it also removes that decision fatigue. Like by the end of the day, you're really exhausted because you've had to make so many little decisions. And so you might have woken up and been like, today is the day that healthy eating, I'm going to start really well, I'm going to go for a run.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the day, you've had a busy day at work, you've been stuck in traffic, your kids smacked you in the face like mine did earlier. And suddenly you're like, oh, do you know what? Takeaway. You can't think through any more decisions. And I do think that if you've taken the time to figure out your values and the things that are important to you, you're kind of automatically putting in place where you're going to spend your time.
Yeah.
And that gifts you time back, basically.
Yeah.
So I would say for me, that's the biggest.
And equally, just don't beat yourself up about things if they do happen to veer off and go in a different direction, because I think that happens a lot. I've certainly experienced that in the past, where, like you say, you got these, maybe January the first rolls around, I'm going to be more healthy this year, and then January the second, you're in a traffic jam, and then you pull over to a service station and buy a bumper-sized Twix or something, and devour that. It's these things will happen, and I think with anything, it's just, again, stepping back and just being kinder on yourself to say, well, looking back at it, I did have a stressful day. At that moment in time, I felt that I'd get more joy out of eating that Twix or whatever I was going to be doing, and that's all right. Tomorrow we'll just reboot and reset and start again. It's I think just being a little bit more kinder really helps. So if people kind of want to start adopting this lifestyle, maybe they've had a look online and kind of trawled through Instagram and found that a lot of these different aspects of all areas of their life is kind of resonating with them. What kind of first steps do you think people should take? How do people start incorporating this? I'm guessing through some small steps, or?
Yeah, I think really it's, instead of looking at it as this big overwhelming picture of all of the things that you want to slow down, that's not very specific, and that's not very helpful in it. Actually, that just adds stress. So really, I think the very first thing is just figure out exactly what it is you would like to slow down to begin with. So it could be, like we've spoken about, your house is overwhelming you, there's so much stuff in it. It could be that actually when you think about it, you don't know the last time you spent time alone because you're always so busy. So it's almost like just kind of very gently taking notes of the times that you have to stop and take some deep breaths to bring you into the moment. And kind of noticing those clues about, okay, I had to do it at this point because this was stressing me out. Whether it was because, I don't know, there's shoes thrown all over the floor, or you're stuck in traffic, or because you've left the house too late, or whatever it is that's bringing you those moments of stress. Just pick one of them and spend a bit of time focusing on that. So for me, it's very difficult to do with a toddler, but if I can start my day with 10 minutes of meditation, it really does. It really makes a difference to my mood for the day. It's about, just taking those deep breaths, recognizing what you're actually grateful for in that moment, and going from there. I think, like you said, it's about being kind to yourself. So it really is just the very small thing. What's stressing me out? What could I do to take 10 minutes to make this slightly less stressful for me and to slow down?
Yeah, and you mentioned meditation there. That's a great way, like you say, just getting back to the core of what you. It's a good base, isn't it? For me, anything that's kind of holistic in that way, it's just spending time with yourself, learning how to sit with yourself, I guess, because a lot of us we don't, do we?
Yeah.
You know, even if
sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say, even if we're sort of, commuting on a train or something like that, although we're sitting with ourselves, we're still kind of, our mind's racing. We're sort of thinking about what we're going to be doing next. But it's a skill that you just need to kind of sit with for a while and just kind of allow yourself to. It's hard to describe, isn't it?
It does come up for my clients as well. Like, I quite regularly recommend, like, have you tried meditation? And quite often it's, no, I haven't. I don't have time.
Yeah.
And then you ask, when did you last spend time on your own for 10 minutes? And I don't mean being on your phone, and I don't mean listening to a podcast, and I don't mean being at the gym where you're running. And the answer is quite often, I've no idea, never. And it's just about, like, gently, like, incorporating, almost like a challenge. Can you find 5 minutes today where you're not being distracted by anything else? Because I think that's also a big part of this kind of the hustle lifestyle, this fast-paced thing, is just that we are constantly distracted. There's so much to distract us that we just completely lose touch with what we want and who we are.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's that we live in that kind of immediacy, that immediate culture. We can order something from Amazon, it comes the next day. If we want to listen to music, we can have a choice of any track ever written through our headphones. When you step back from that, that's pretty amazing. To think back, when I was younger, you used to mail order, fill out a form and then send it off, and then you get it like 3 weeks later or something. To think about how far that's achieved, but people then carry that mindset and viewpoint over, and that's what they've got to give. Especially for people listening that run businesses as well. That's a whole other conversation about whether
switching off.
And if you get an email, for a lot of people, they feel compelled to immediately come back and to do a ton of work and stop maybe what they're doing at the time. I'd say with meditation, it's such a great way, and I think if people can stick with it, I think we'd both agree that there's so many benefits that come off the back of it.
Absolutely.
And you just find that you're just more kind of free thinking with your thoughts. Your mood just generally lifts, and it's really powerful. Just to geek out, are you kind of an app person with meditation?
Oh yeah, absolutely, an app person for sure.
So let me guess, are you sort of team Headspace or Calm, or what are you?
I was Headspace for a very long time, and I got myself all the way to about 280 something days straight.
Okay.
And then I'm not sure what happened. Maybe our subscription ran out or something.
Yeah.
I'm now team Insight Timer.
I've seen that. Yeah, that's totally free as well, isn't it?
It is free. There is a paid version where you get courses and things, but it's a lot more expansive. It's not just Headspace is absolutely fantastic, and Andy's voice sends me off to sleep in the best way. That's the best way. It's perfect for, like, beginner meditation, sort of just learning to tune in for 10 minutes, learning to get in touch with your breathing. Insight Timer, there are so many different topics. So I've kind of got a spiritual side to me, which is growing, and there's more things I'm interested in. So you can learn everything about manifesting and your chakras and auras and Reiki. It's just all on there. It's fascinating. And there's meditations and talks and courses and there's something new every time.
And as you say, there's so much content in there that's actually free, isn't there? If you're listening to this and you kind of want to step in to just try meditation, that'd be a good shout to just get it and just try some stuff. I think is the best sort of advice, really, isn't it? To just to see what resonates with you as you kind of scroll down and just kind of try some bits out. Okay, I need to have that geek off with the meditation. That's I'm really interested in. I guess we've spoken about it a little bit before, but I'm guessing when you first kind of meet with a client or you're having that consultation period, I guess we spoke a little bit before about kind of the stories we tell ourselves about why we can't do stuff. Is there kind of a trend that you see with a lot of people in regards to some of the things they may think why they can't work with a coach to maybe look at a different kind of lifestyle set?
Yeah, I mean, it basically comes back to not having the time because you feel too busy. So it doesn't kind of really matter what sort of lifestyle you have, whether you've got kids or a full-time job or you work for yourself. And actually, I was thinking about this thing. Have you heard of called Parkinson's law?
I haven't. No, what's that?
Which it basically states that your work expands to fill the time available for its completion. So if you've got like 2 days to complete a project, it will take you 2 days. But if you've been told you've only got 2 hours, it'll only take you 2 hours. So unless we're kind of like, working on those very tight deadlines, we do tend to procrastinate. We lose focus really easily, and we fill up our time way more than is necessary. And because we're filling up this time with procrastination, with distractions, with everything we can be doing, we're left feeling like we don't actually have enough of it. So when you catch yourself doing that, it does make it easier to claw that time back again. I'm going to come back to setting those boundaries. It's particularly hard when you work for yourself. It was always my dream to work for myself. I'm thrilled to be doing it, but the self-management involved is quite considerable. So it's it's saying like, on Tuesdays I work on this, on Wednesdays I work on this. It takes me 1 hour to write up my coaching notes, whatever it is. It's kind of funny, because a big part of slow living for me is really not having the rules, right? Not having regulations, really tuning into what feels right for you in that moment, but equally introducing boundaries, introducing like your own little rules that are obviously flexible and can ebb and flow, actually gives you more freedom as well. So it's quite an interesting kind of contradiction there.
Yeah, and that's so true what you're saying about that Parkinson's law as well, is that, I think we can all remember back where maybe a boss in the past has said, right, we need this by 2:00 or something, and you think, well, it usually takes me 3 days to do it, but you do it, don't you? And you get it done.
You do, yeah.
It's you just find ways to do these things, and I think people underestimate what they can do a lot of the time, if they just kind of adapt some of the workings. And super interested in that. I think if people are kind of listening to this conversation and they're thinking, this might be something that I kind of want to get involved with, can you just tell us a little bit about how you kind of work with a client? I think that'd be really interesting to hear. I'm guessing that begins with kind of like a consultation stage.
Yes. So the first stage would be for somebody to obviously contact me through my website or even Instagram. Great. Everybody that contacts me, there's quite a lot of work that we do together that's free, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
So somebody would contact me, and I will send you a very juicy questionnaire to kind of get you thinking about where you are in your life right now. So what's good, what's bad, what's stressing you out, what you'd like to slow down, pretty much everything. And actually acknowledging what your really big dreams are. I really feel the questionnaire, I've already had feedback on it, that just the questionnaire alone is a great way to start living slow, because actually you have to sit down and answer the questions, and you might not have considered them before. Even answering those questions is really amazing. The self-knowledge that you gain just from that, you're like, oh, hey, I didn't realize this was the thing that was causing me stress. So questionnaire is the first step, and then once I've received that, we will have a discovery call, about half an hour, 45 minutes. Again, this is also free, because the whole thing with coaching is it's a really it's a big investment, like I said, but it's also quite a vulnerable space to be in, I suppose.
True.
And not just from the client's point of view. From my point of view as the coach, I want to know that we are going to work well together. I'm quite open about things that are happening in my life too. And so it's really important that by doing the questionnaire and having this discovery call, we've got an opportunity to kind of suss each other out, basically.
Definitely.
So it's really good. Like this, that's all like no obligation at all.
Okay.
Just as a way for us to feel that we can trust one another and support each other. But if that's all really good and we want to work together, then we sign a coaching agreement, figure out payments, and then start working together. So at the moment, I offer 3 packages. There's a one-off consult call, which is called Be Still.
Yeah.
And that would be the questionnaire. And then it would be an hour and a half's call, and then 2 weeks of follow up via email.
Okay.
So that's just a one-off. And then there's a 3-month coaching series and a 6-month coaching series. So be slow and be soulful. So with a coaching series, we will have a call every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I tend to do them over video because for me, I just think it's really important for body language, and being able to see each other is really important.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We'll set some goals in the first series, in the first call. You can set between 1 and 3 goals as kind of realistic for, say, a 3-month series.
Yeah.
And the goals are not going to be, I don't know, throw out everything in my house in the next 3 months, or, or start a business. They're going to be like really heart-centered ones, something that's really meaningful to you.
Yeah.
So like, I'm happy to give an example. I've just finished working with my coach, and one of my goals was, oh my gosh, now I've forgotten it, haven't I? Give me a second, because the wording was really great. Oh, claiming myself as a powerful business owner.
Okay.
So quite like, into me, I knew what that would feel like when I had achieved it.
Yeah.
So a big part of the goal setting is like, it really means something to you. And at the beginning of each session after that, I will always ask, like, how are you feeling about the goal? Are you still feeling connected to it? Are you excited by it? Is it feeling overwhelming to you? And then once we've set those goals, then we will just set, well, I don't say we, you as the client will set smaller actions that you can take over the next few weeks before our next goal, before our next call.
Yeah.
So that the whole point of coaching is to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. It is not therapy. It is not counselling. Absolutely, things will come up from your past, but we're not talking about them in depth. We're just talking about them to figure out the theme of what's kind of appeared in your life in the past, and how we can kind of change that moving forwards. And I am not there to tell you what to do. That is not what coaching is about. I am there to hold that space for you, to ask some really powerful questions, get you thinking about things in a way that perhaps you haven't before, and giving you the confidence to take those steps and move towards what it is that you want. And usually, well, always, stuff comes up that you don't expect. Like when you start, I'm probably doing it now actually, when you start talking and then you keep talking and you just suddenly come up this like, aha, oh my gosh, moment just suddenly happens. You're like, oh my God, I had no idea I felt this way. Where did that come from?
No, definitely.
Or you've never pieced things together. That's what coaching is. It's like piecing those things together, figuring out what your mindset has been that held you back from reaching these goals in the past, working on them between our sessions, having that accountability with a coach, and learning loads about yourself in the process. It's pretty special, if I do say so myself.
It is. And what advice would you kind of give someone, if they're looking for someone to work with? What's best to look out for in a coach, would you say, when they're kind of looking for someone? What's the best kind of way to approach it, and kind of what should they be looking out for?
It's just got to be somebody you feel really connected with, really.
Yeah.
So that could be different people at different times of your life. Coaching, like life coaching, is still fairly new in the UK. I would say that in the US and Australia, they're, really big business, and people commonly will work with a coach. It's still fairly new here. So I understand that people maybe aren't too sure what to look for. So it's unlikely you're going to just find somebody on Instagram, say, I like them, let's work together, and just go for it. It's probably more likely you'll find somebody you'll follow, you'll sign up to their newsletter, you'll read their blog, you'll, consume some of their free content, listen to them on podcasts, and just to figure out the person that's right for you. I don't think there's like a big trick to it.
No.
So you can obviously work with coaches one-to-one, which is the services that I offer. In the future, I'm going to be offering workshops. I'm going to be writing ebooks. I want to offer retreats and, all sorts of things, e-courses. So there are plenty of courses that you can do online where you're part of a group of people and you're kind of being led through certain topics each week or each module. So it really is a case of just looking out there and seeing what fits for you.
And what would you say, if someone was to ask you, why should I work with a coach? What do you think are the real benefits of working with a coach for some of this stuff? What would be that kind of elevator pitch in a few sentences for you?
I'm not sure I'm very good at elevator pitches, to be honest.
No.
I think the biggest thing for me, both as a coach and as a client, when I work with my coaches myself, is accountability.
Okay.
It's so common for us to have these big dreams of something that we want to do, and that dream can get written down on January the 1st this year, next year, the year after, 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
And you tell yourself you don't have the time, you don't have the money to pursue them. But working with a coach, it gives you that space, and it gives you that time to achieve those goals. And so that dream is within reach for you. It's, especially if you are thinking of working with somebody to adopt like a slower lifestyle. Yeah. If it's something you haven't done before, it's going to be hard work. It's not easy, especially if other people in your life don't really get it. But if you do the work yourself, other people will slowly notice and potentially do their own work. So it's quite far reaching. I think that's another benefit of it. You think it's about you, but actually it radiates out to the other people in your life and to your business, if your business is also, a big part of your life. It's a really safe space. And I think, especially with how busy life is, I think that a lot of people just don't have somewhere they can come and they can just be, vulnerable, as sad, as frustrated, as motivated, as whatever it might be. There's not many spaces that someone can come and feel safe and not be judged and not have to worry about what somebody else is thinking and not having to put somebody else's needs ahead of their own. And I think that coupled with the accountability of you're speaking every couple of weeks, plus you are, in touch the rest of the time. So if you're working together for 3 months or 6 months, you are in touch with each other that whole time to share the great things that you've done or the difficulty you've had today, or what do you think of this? It's just having that person they're not a part of your day-to-day life, but they do genuinely care about you at the same time. And I think so many people don't have that.
No. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be listening to our conversation this evening. It's going to be really exciting for them, and I know that they'll want to kind of go and learn more and kind of take some steps into moving a little slower in what they're doing. What would be your one tip that if someone was kind of intrigued by this kind of lifestyle, that a small step that they maybe could take the next day to kind of not rush into things, as we've said, and not try and change the world in the next 24 hours, but what could be a small thing that would kind of send them on their way?
Okay, so it's quite hard to just give one tip, but I've got an idea. I would say sit down with your diary. So whether it's a calendar on your phone or you use paper, whatever, look at your diary for the next month. How are you spending your time? Like, how much of it is being taken up with things you enjoy and how much of it is being taken up with obligations? I'm not saying quit your job if you hate it, like immediately, of course.
Yeah.
Although I would support you to do that. Is it possible for you to give yourself the gift of time? Can you give yourself one evening a week or even a month, if that's all that's possible, to just be, and I don't mean zoning out and using Netflix or Instagram as some kind of like a medicine, it's because we do, right? Again, it's kind of coming back to, could you put 10 minutes of meditation into your week or into your day? Could you spend 5 minutes writing into a journal, this is how I'm feeling right now, and just getting it out? Could you do some yoga stretches before bed? So basically, is there any way any time in your diary in the next month you can just be quiet for a few minutes, take a few deep breaths, and give yourself permission to what you need in that moment? Now, sometimes what you need is to watch Netflix, and I'm fully on board with that. But just kind of like having that habit of just taking a few moments, taking those breaths, figuring out what you need. It's a really good step towards living a bit more slowly.
That's perfect. Amongst all the coaching you're doing at the moment, you touched upon what might be coming, but is there anything you've got kind of coming up that you wanted to kind of chat about today? I know you spoke about, the retreats and the workshops that you'd love to do. Is that something that's kind of coming up, or is that kind of a bit further out?
Well, retreats are definitely a little bit further out, unfortunately, but I am in the early stages of planning a workshop with somebody local, a local yoga teacher in I think we're meeting next week actually to start kind of like really figuring out what we want to be offering there. At the moment I have a mailing list, and I send an email out once a month, which is always about slow living and like a kind of a topic related to it. So my most recent one was to do with patience and how that shows up within slow living. I've done kindness, connection, all kinds of things. And that's a really good way to get to know me really, a lot better as well, because I'm quite personal in that. And I'm going to commit to this by saying this out loud now. I've spoken about writing like a free, download, 5 ways to start living slow. And I did think, you know what, I'd really like to get that done before my next newsletter at the end of March.
Okay.
So there you go. I'm going to be working on that. But I've just got big dreams. I've had like a 10 chapter ebook planned out for about a year and a half. So I might finally start working on that too. But because I'm all about the slow living, I'm just doing things as and when they feel right. I'm not forcing myself into anything. But newsletter is a really good place to start. Check out my website because I have been working on that.
Definitely. And I guess if people are kind of listening to this and kind of want to get in touch for a chat or maybe set up a consultation, how's the best way to find you? I'm guessing through social media or through the website?
Yes. So my website is inspireandenjoy.com. So there's a contact form on there that you can just get in touch with me there. Otherwise, my Instagram, where I am Verity Gaida, which is Gaida. I thought I'd spell it out. I don't install it for a full week. I tend to have it on for like 3 or 4 days, and then I uninstall it because that's kind of like a boundary for me.
That's a good one.
But my DMs, I'm always having amazing conversations in my messages. So honestly, you don't need to get in touch with me because you're 100% thinking of working with me. Just say hi. I'm generally quite friendly on there. So that's always open to people, always.
Yeah, perfect. I like to kind of wrap things up with some gratitude, because I think that's a really powerful thing to do. So I just want to kind of thank you for, the work that you're doing, putting into the world. I think, as we've spoken before, there's a lot of noise around the hustle and fast-paced living, and I think for a lot of people that just doesn't resonate. I accept that there's a lot of people that does, and that's great for them, and that's amazing. But I think there's a lot of people who your content is serving now, which they'll get more out of what they're doing, and they'll kind of just give them a voice, I think, in that there is the possibility that they can move forward in the way that's natural, feels natural to them, and just gives them some strength. So thank you for that, and the work that you're doing around that. And just thank you for your time this evening. It's been, it's been really great. I think it's one of those conversations that we can go off on a tangent. So, when I spoke about sort of business, and I think there's a whole other conversation about that as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And how to look at that. But I think, we've made some great groundwork that maybe, always maybe need to have a follow-up conversation at some point around.
Oh, that would be great.
But no, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure.
Perfect. So guys, I hope you found that interesting. We've had a great show today. What I'd really love is to hear your comments, your feedback about the content we've spoken about today. So wherever you're listening, we'd really appreciate some comments, whether it's via Spotify, iTunes, or even through the show notes page on the blog. Please leave some comments. Also, feel free to contact either myself or Verity and just have a chat. Maybe there's some things that really resonated with you. We'd love to get your feedback on that. And also, if you're listening via some of the podcast platforms, we really love a review on there. So if you happen to be passing, please leave us a review. It would be really appreciated. But until next time, I've been Rusty, and this has been Make Today Count. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.